The following is a presentation of Tuning into Sci-Fi TV, the viewer's guide to genre television.
Hello and welcome to the Small Council Matters podcast. I am Wendy and the Maesters are back in session. Let's get started by going around the table and introducing yourselves.
I'm Christine from Michigan, your mistress of correction. Was it worth it, Raina?
Hey everybody, this is Shannon from out in the Pacific Northwest. I drink and I know things. And in true Game of Thrones fashion, come for the dragons, hang around for the incest.
I am Jesse Jackson DFW on social media. I am Maester of Sunshine, Happiness, and all things Springsteen. And boy, we're not seeing a lot of happiness so far.
And I am Wendy, the Maester of URLs to share with you all. And I don't know, maybe I'm going to become a collector of Pomander as well this season. Welcome, everyone, to the Season 3 premiere episode of House of the Dragon, Salt, Sea, Fire, and Blood. All that together makes things tasty. We'd love to hear from you. We would love for you to come by our Discord. We have a specific channel just for folks who are watching the Game of Thrones TV version of things. There's also a channel for book readers too. We'd also love to hear from you on social media. We are at SCM_pod or at Tuning Into Sci-Fi. You can call us at 706-927-8478 and leave a message. And we would love to hear from you guys. So first up, we're going to talk about news and links, and then we're going to get into talking about all the spoilery details of this episode. I'm just going to summarize what is in the links in the show notes, and folks talk about the ones that either jumped out at them or they really liked. Have a couple links to interviews with Matt Smith doing press before the premiere. One is a New York Times interview that has some great photos in it, and it talks about his career overall, as well as what he's excited about in season 3. And I'll give you a hint or a spoiler. It's the ultra violence. There's also a very fun interview of him on the Today Show, and there's a tie-in to the World Cup that was fun. We also have a couple of interviews talking to Harry Collette, who plays Jace. And a lot of those center around how he goes out in this episode and some special things. And then we have links to the behind the scenes. There's about a 20-minute video about the sea battle. And that was fascinating because they literally built a gimbal set that would hold a whole ship, and one of them is dry and the other one could be completely filled with water as a tank. And then the other link is to, I would call it some behind the scenes of the episode and the season overall. There's some cast glimpses in there as well. And we have a Emma Darcy and Tom Glencarney, who plays Aegon, recapping season 2. So any thoughts on any of the news and links?
As usual, I haven't been able to look at many of these. I did see the Tom and Emma recap like a week ago, and it was interesting. It was kind of them being pitted against each other about who's right in this, which, you know, is basically how any battle goes. It's amusing to watch. I mostly was able to quick glance over the Harry Collette interviews. He had a final request of being what he wanted to do in his last episode, which is apparently, for the first time, say Dracarys. Because, of course, if you're a dragon rider, that's like the one thing you want to be able to do. And I can't believe they didn't have it written in there. What's wrong with these people? I'm glad he got to say it though. And, you know, reviewing the effort and thought that was put into his acting in his final scenes, it was really nice to see that. I went back and watched the scene just to like get that context. It was a interesting watch. And they do lightly brush on the fact that the dragon dies in the same scene, and it's just a CGI character. There's no such thing as dragons. And yet your heart breaks, you know? Like, I don't ever want to watch an animal getting hurt or killed in a show, and it hit the same notes, and I don't know how I feel about that, guys.
It's funny you should mention that. I saw a lot of chatter online since the episode with people comparing it to childhood trauma of watching The Dragon and the Neverending Story.
Horse.
Spoiler.
Horse. I felt that same thing while it was happening.
So yeah, I watched most of these. I didn't get a chance to watch the big one about the naval battle because that wasn't up last night by the time I finished watching. But I do plan to watch that one. All the others are good, but if you like Matt Smith, the interviews with him are very charming because he's always very charming and humble. The Tom and Emma recap was kind of fun because they were quasi in character recapping things. And I did like that Harry Collette, when he rapped, everybody came together to give him applause, and even though they were filming elsewhere, came to give him hugs and everything for his final scene. And he got to take two things home. He got his sword, the prop, not like one of the rubber ones, but the actual metal one that doesn't have sharp edges. Still, he got his sword, and they made him a mold of Vermax's head. So he joked that that's going to be a great coffee table thing for parties. So those are all fun to look at.
Was it like real sized or small?
I don't know if it was life size or not. He better have a big coffee table.
Yeah, he also had an interview at the official podcast, and he talked about like he was like 17 or 18 when he started this, and now then, you know, he still lives with his parents. He said, but I'm going to end up putting in a shadow box the sword. Yeah, all these were great. I think the behind the scenes, that epic sea battle, HBO does a great job in these. Going in depth. And this one, they were really proud of the fact they put a lot of numbers on the screen, like how many people they set on fire, how many gallons of water, how much of propane they had used. And all I could think of, I guess they were saying it's over 300 days of filming this season. And you're just like, gosh, the amount of money they're spending on this is just crazy. So yeah, it's really interesting. And yeah, there was a lot of love about Harry on this, going about what a wonderful person he is. And so I was glad to see him getting a little love from the rest of the cast.
Yeah, he's definitely well liked, and it was super sweet. You know, his fiance character came to the set to watch him film his demise. And they put a lot of care. He put a lot of care into everything. It was very clear. The one thing I did want to comment on was in the New York Times interview, they actually cobbled together comments from people that have worked with Matt Smith in the past, like Karen Gillan and Stephen Moffat. And Stephen Moffat commented about Matt Smith's charm and how he will make you think that you're the most special person in your new BFF. And he's like, that's just Matt Smith. Don't actually think you're best friends with him. And the other thing that Moffat talked about was when he cast him as Doctor Who, the thing that really struck him was he seemed like an old soul in a very young body. And I've always thought that about him when he played the Doctor, but also other characters. So fun stuff in there. 315 days of filming, I believe, was the number, Jesse. It was a lot of fun to read that. They Also had the world record for the most people set on fire in one scene, which was one of the boats that they set ablaze. It did make me think, though. I'm like, isn't there a point of diminishing returns in terms of, how much perfection and realism you need versus the cost, and whether anybody actually sees it on screen? So I was listening to that and I'm like, at what point have we gone too far? And I'm going to wonder if we talk about that a little bit as we get into the details. But first, let's hear sort of your quick thoughts and quick review of the episode overall. And we're going to start with Christine.
So by the end of the episode, I felt like it was just like one big battle through the whole thing. Then I went back and realized all the stuff they managed to cram into this episode. And it never once felt like it was dragging to me or moving too fast. I was fully entertained through all of it. I even did a peanut gallery thing while watching, thinking I probably should have done a reaction video or something because there was so much content in our feedback. But it was an absolutely epic episode that I liked several parts of it. Like, there wasn't a single part that I was like, okay, that's just cut that out. It was well paced. It was what you expect from, entertaining TV. I believe there was even some good humor in there, which, sometimes is lacking. I don't really have any complaints about this. So, I'm giving it 10 out of 10 sweet-toothed cameos. If you know, you know.
Remember when we were in the midst of the hype of Game of Thrones, and the penultimate episode was always the one that had major character deaths or big battles or what have you? I mean, this honestly felt like the ninth and penultimate episode of season 2, which by all accounts it was probably going to be if we had not run into time and budget and the strike and other things like that. So it had a little bit different tenor usually than a season opener where you kind of recalibrate and reset and refresh everybody's memories about who's where. We just kind of dove right into it, and it had a breakneck pace the whole way. That little quibble aside about how it falls in the order of the production, the episode as it stands on its own was terrific, I thought. You had just unbelievable action, good character moments. We touched on most everybody that we wanted to catch up with, and it was a lot of fun. We had a new opening. The graphics were slightly different. I didn't notice all the changes, but they definitely remixed Ramin Djawadi's score to be more drum heavy. And I wonder if that's a one episode thing because of the war, or it's going to be a thing for this season to say now we're fully in the dance and everybody's at war, and it's going to continue that sonic motif. But yeah, I loved it. I give it a 9.3.
Yeah, I was so excited. I'm just anticipating this all day Sunday. And it really delivered. I agree with both of you guys. It just flowed very quickly. I didn't feel like it was rushed, but I also felt like they paced it well. The story was going. My only, it all kind of blended together in a good way. I felt like this was a really good story. And I had said before we hit record, it's going to be hard for me to pick a favorite scene because there's so many that kind of blend together. But I was really we're glad to be here. I was worried, because we had loved The Night so much because it was a smaller story. This is grander, but so far they seem to still giving us not the same kind of character moments, but they are characters driving the action, not just, special effects. So I'm going to go 9 out of 10. What's he smelling? Salt. I assume it's like, you really stink, so let me have this perfume bottle.
I have notes.
Yeah, the word for that is pomander, is what he's smelling.
Pomander?
Pomander. Pomander. Yeah, this episode, it did feel like, as Shannon pointed out, a penultimate, because usually the big battle is sort of at the back of the season. The thing I really loved about this was everything that we were told was supposed to happen at the end of last season is immediately thrown over in the first 5 minutes when Alicent returns to King's Landing and finds out, oh, everything I just told Rhaenyra is wrong. And the fog of war ensues for everybody. So I really liked that. R.I.P. Vermax and just Jace. I would give this a 9 out of 10 scorpions with anchors. So now let's get talking about some of the details and the highlights. A lot of the action was so well intercut between different points of view of the battle. I'm going to be very curious how folks characterize things when they describe their highlights. So let's get started, Christine.
Well, I'm just going to dodge that altogether and pick something else. Obviously the battle is the meat of this episode, which I thought was going to be in episode 3, by the way, but guess why put it off any longer? But what I think I enjoyed the most this episode, really made me laugh and comment on the most while I was watching the first time through, was the dragon seeds. They've been sent off to, I won't say Harrenhal. I believe they're on the island in the God's Eye, which is close, because they are the Isle of Faces, which is just a wonderful place to be. And they're expecting Aemon to show up on Vhagar, and they're supposed to take him out. And I don't see how that would happen, because they are all very untrained, but I'm sure they'd give it the good old college try if he only showed up. We cut into the scene in the middle of Ulf going hard on the overshare. He's talking about his childhood, how he's been beaten, and how a priest paid him for sex, and it's just like a deep level of storytelling that the other two so did not ask for. And he's all like, so that's how I found out I had King's blood. How about you guys? And they're just like, And luckily they get out of sharing their stories, because I don't think they would have had anything on that level. But I love Ulf finding out that being a knight doesn't mean getting a castle. He thought they were all getting castles, and they're like, what are you talking about? And I got a real red versus blue moment out of that, when he's like, the dragon's not good enough. You can't, you can't eat a title. You can't live in a title. Yeah, but you'll get lots of chicks. And he's like, you can't pick up chicks with a dragon. That's my red versus blue moment. You can't pick up chicks in a tank. It's like, he's obviously the odd man out in that bunch. Like, the other two have better education, even for common folk, and he's, like, I predicted last episode that he's going to turn on the blacks, and this just feels like it's heading that way. But cut forward to later on, and weird stuff starts happening, as it would on the Isle of Faces, because that is like the last vestige of weirdness in Westeros, south of the Wall. And we see, well, first, Ulf sees a goat. It's a normal goat. I don't know where it came from, but that freaked him right the hell out. And then the other two see a guy with antlers. He's there, and then he's gone, and then no one talks about it again. And I want an explanation. And right when you think somebody would be talking about it, that's when Alice shows up. Out of nowhere. It's an island. How did she get there? Because she's actually a barn owl. That's right. And she's like, you guys are in the wrong place. You gotta get back home. And then, who are you? Because at this point, everybody's like, what's going on? What was that? Who are you? And her answer is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. It explains everything you need to know and everything you have to do. I'm a witch. And that's it. Man, she should do recaps because she'll sum it up perfectly. This combination of scenes was just so wacky and crazy and delightful, and I hope we get something like this in every episode.
Yeah, this was on my short list of scenes too. I love that just because of all the tonal shifts you noted, Christine. All story was very reminiscent of Gendry or Varys, where red priests or priestesses are very interested in royal blood and do weird things for royal blood, and didn't turn out really well for Varys. Gendry got away before they could drain too much of it or do anything else to it. But he tells that story, and you almost develop a little sympathy for him, and then he turns back into the same a-hole he's always been. And again, Christine, you were right. That's the perfect line. I'm a witch. I love the way she summed that up, right after they're seeing the other thing and decide to get out of there. It's a weird place, and Harrenhal has always been a place that's surrounded by mystery and spirits and haunts, and we spent a lot of time with it. Viewers seem to be divided over Damon's time there last year. I really liked it. I thought Matt Smith, and I can't remember who plays Alice right now, they just killed it during all those scenes. And her appearance was brief but extremely potent. And you got a little bit of reveal of the personality and motivations of how each one of them approaches their job as a dragon rider. Adam seems a little more dignified, and he was probably chosen more so than the other two. It wasn't in a trial by fire, but Seasmoke just showed up and found him versus the way it happened for the other two. Hugh understands a little bit more about class consciousness and what's going on. Ulf is just a selfish lout. And they're all kind of three distinct personalities in that. So I like the idea of those three personality types bouncing off each other in that spooky setting. And yeah, guy with antlers. What? So yeah, it was a really fun and effective scene, and I dug it.
I just want to correct myself. I said Alan earlier to Adam. This is going to be my problem. Everybody has their little hang up. I'm still waiting for Wendy to say Matt Damon again this season. But
I'm sure I will.
Adam and Alan's going to be my problem until one of them dies.
Well, as long as I'm on the podcast, you will not come first on misspeaking. This was a great scene. I took it a little bit different when Ulf is talking about, he told me a story that I was of royal blood, and I decided to take it. So, is this true or not? I don't know. Now, something somewhere allowed him to claim a dragon, but I don't know yet. The history books say you have to be of this, Targaryen, but the Targaryens are the ones that are writing the history books. So maybe it's something else. But anyway, I love that. The other two are like, why do we have to be stationed with this guy? Right? He is a pain. He's always asking for more little birds. And then, well, you'll be respected if you're a knight. I'll have a dragon. That's why they respect me. This kind of cockiness.
He's not wrong.
Yeah, I know. I don't have to, when you walk softly and carry a big dragon. I mean, he's there. So it was very funny and kind of talking to him. And yes, there's definitely oversharing. And we continued having a bathroom scene. I was like, didn't we already do that in the night?
Getting Night of the Seven Kingdoms vibes.
Yeah. So it was, and I do get them, like, what are we supposed to do? And yes, Alice just there. And who are you? I'm a witch. Okay, I guess that's, I would have other questions, but I guess they're like, okay, I guess it's a witch, it's a rule, we have to go.
Yeah, so Harrenhal, she came from Harrenhal, right? So she's not that far away. They're in the area. So it's not that surprising that she would show up, especially if she is an owl. I have read some interesting speculation that she's like the precursor to the Three-Eyed Raven, because there wasn't a Three-Eyed Raven yet. Brynden Rivers, I guess, hadn't quite been born yet. The thing that I found really interesting about this whole conversation amongst these three was how tenuous a bunch of troops the Team Black has, because Adam is sitting there saying, these are our orders, we're supposed to stay until he shows up. And Hugh is like, well, how long were we really supposed to stay? and then you have Ulf, who I wouldn't say I have empathy for him. He's obviously a very damaged person. One of the first things he said was when he was a child, he thought he would be better off dead than the life he was living. And that was before he laid down the Red Priest rape and other things that was done to him. My observation about his comments that he was, of royal blood was that the Red Priest recognized that he was of royal blood. I don't know whose, and we didn't quite get everybody sharing about who's your daddy or your mommy around the campfire.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
And I loved the whole dialogue. It was actually making me think of Game of Thrones and the sworn sword to Tyrion. I'm going to forget his name, who was always going on and on about how he wanted a castle. And Jaime was supposed to give him a castle. Cersei was supposed to give him a castle. He finally got his castle when he was complaining about you get more women with a castle. So this is a great choice amongst a lot of good options. So
that was Bronn,
nice start.
By the way. Bronn.
Thank you. Okay, Shannon, what do you got?
Well, as I noted before, I had lots of choices I could go with here. I'm going to go with an unconventional one and pick the incest. What I loved about that scene, and as we noted earlier, when Alicent gets back, she's completely wrong-footed because everything she assured Rhaenyra was going to happen, none of it's going according to plan. So when she comes in, the precursor to the scene, she sees Aemond on the throne. And he's, and then she's like, what am I going to do? And the next time we see her, she's talking to Helena, and there Alicent gets the idea that Aemond might be frightened, because she picked it up either because she knows it and that she sensed it, or because she can see it, because of her perceptions. So when Aemond and Alicent talk again, you can see her go through several different tactics and change strategy based on how Aemond is reacting. And it's just a masterclass in acting from the both of them, but especially Olivia Cook. She is just phenomenal in this scene. Because at first she talks about, the threats and talks a little logistically and you need to support Cole and Gwaine and, take care of Daemon and that. And he doesn't seem to bite on that. And then she's like, well, it'll be a great victory, and plays up his honor, then plays into the fear. And then it's like, she changes gears a little bit, and is the one thing that he really craves is attention and affection. Because he was always bullied because he was the youngest one without a dragon, and was not the older brother and such. So when he starts to move in for that kiss, the reactions, the little micro expressions on her face, she knows she can't give the game away and pull away or anger him, but she's like, what the f- going on here? And then it all washes over her face. And I read an interview with the two of them, like, they tried it lots of different ways about who closes whose eyes and whatever. And he closes his eyes and moves in, and she leaves hers wide open. And the shot that they give us, like after you're stunned by it, is just focused on her expression. And there's terror, yet there's steely determination. And I got to get through this. And then as they pull away, there's like a single tear. And then the relief on her face when he says, I'll throw a huge banquet in your honor at Harrenhal, and we'll have Daemon's head on a bike. And then it's the end. But just watching what Olivia Cooke did with that was absolutely fantastic. So not this doesn't mean that I'm pro incest, but I thought the scene and the acting in that was just tremendous. And it also kind of points out where, like, Rhaenyra, if it's a tale of these two women kind of at its core, Rhaenyra commands an army, she rides a dragon, she has all these things at her disposal. And Alyssa, who was in the driver's seat a little bit in the first season when she was Viserys' wife and could command things, she got passed over to be named regent when Aegon was incapacitated. So she doesn't have a lot of tools to work with. So it's just her, with her meager resources, if you will, trying to navigate the situation as best as possible. And I thought it was just a tremendous performance.
I agree. It was a little creepy, actually a lot creepy. Though this is how they roll, that is how this family rolls. It really gave a great example, show not tell, that her only weapon now is manipulation. She's got to convince her son that to do something she needs him to do. And so by playing with him, you should have been king. I should have. And I think we set this up well last season, right, when we saw him with the elder madam, and that he was spending time with her, that he wanted, that's an overly simplification, a mother figure, but someone of more maturity and that affection and caring. And talk about an outdated reference, right? But the Smothers Brothers, right? Mom always loved you best, right? So I'm sure he has a little bit of that feeling that he's not her daughter. He's not the firstborn. They never did get revenge for him losing his eye, despite him saying, I lost an eye but gained a dragon. It still always bothers him that there wasn't, quote unquote, an eye for an eye. And so I thought it was just really well done. And you're right. Olivia looked like, we're going there. Yep, we're going there. And so it was a wonderful scene that kind of sets where, and yes, it was so, and I will give a great banquet on there with my uncle's head staring down at us. So, like, look, I made this. You can put it on the refrigerator. Look at the drawing I made you.
Or a sheep I regurgitated out for you. This is an interesting choice, and I was thinking about it also in the context of the two scenes before that with Alicent. So in the throne room, when she learns that, everything I thought I knew about what was going on in the war is wrong, and he's quite confident when he's sitting on the throne about, we got this triarchy plot, we're going to outship them 3-1, and that's happening today. So, don't worry about my craven brother. But then in her room, she's writing the instructions to Ormond. So this is before she's had the talk with Aemon. So she is already starting to line up her strategy. And I agree, it was a masterclass in manipulation. And my note was Aemon gets Oedipal with Alicent when this all came down. He's clearly desperate for either of his parents, respect, attention, love, especially her love. And she even admits that, she didn't prepare Aegon properly to be king. And then she flips to the, you should have been king, but it was just because you're born second that you weren't allowed to be, kind of, loophole type stuff. And Aemon is, she found the spot. She found the spot to push in terms of being able to manipulate him. And then when he does show his true colors, it's really gross. He makes a pass at his mother and then talks about a banquet with heads on pikes as the celebration. I mean, that's really gross. And I do agree, Shannon, with how she was able to convey that, like, I'm horrified, but I need to keep it together so that, this doesn't escalate or give myself away. Because when she first talked to him on the throne room, that was right after he was about to behead the Maester for helping Aegon escape with no evidence that he was the guy who did it. And I guess it was just happened to be lucky that the guy walked in the middle of the beheading to say, oh yeah, it was Larys that did that. So yeah, this is a great moment to highlight.
Yeah, I loved his reaction. Lord Larys is missing too, and he goes, and walks off. I'm like, So yeah, Aemon, right from the beginning of the episode, he's showing signs of deterioration, quick, rash judgments, and turning on a dime with the Maester. And then there's that whole making out with your mom thing. But I know you guys are saying that Alicent's a masterclass in manipulation. Honestly, I gotta say, first off, remind me not to have her on my poker team. Where were you? Pause. I was in the Godswood. Oh, okay, yeah, I totally believe you. Absolutely. But she was pulling out all the stops. But honestly, I think she overplayed her hand. It was clearly like one thing after another. She'd say something and pause and expect a reaction. Didn't get it. Okay, let me try something else. And it just felt to me like he could see what she was doing. And I'm getting a little of this from, the inside the episode. He kind of did see what she was doing, but he also didn't care because he was kind of getting what he's wanted from his mom this whole time. This, her love. And I think Aemon thinks that Aegon got her love more than he did. And honestly, like, I remember last season thinking, you didn't care about this kid ever. All you seem to do is yell at him, tell him how he's failing, and even hit him. And Aemon thought Aegon was getting better love. Honestly, I don't think she was a great mother. The only one she seemed to care for was Helaena. And that's just because she needed so much more attention. So, I really feel like a lot of this is just, her bad upbringing. But I do have to give it to Shannon. You said Olivia Cook was on fire. Despite how I feel about Alicent, she was killing it. Olivia was definitely killing it. We were watching it the first time. At the end of that scene when her face was just like she was trying desperately not to sick up in her mouth and try to keep a straight face as he left the room. I was like, give that woman an Emmy. Because I don't know how I was able to read all of that on her face. It was just this cacophony of emotion. It was intense. And I just gotta say, him saying he would throw a feast in her honor, that terrified me. I don't know what that means coming from him. I'm just waiting for, like, this show's version of the Red Wedding. Ugh. An excellent scene, Jesse, yeah.
Before we leave this topic, Wendy, you brought up something, and I wrote down a question I wanted to chat with you, fellow Maesters, about. Because Wendy, you brought up the order of it. So, surprise, see him in the throne room, writing the letter with Helena, and then the scene we just talked about. In the letter, when we see Ormond open it, now remember, this is her brother, right, that she's writing this to. Did she write it so that Ormond would believe it really was from Aemond? Or do you think she snuck some kind of code in there to communicate something to him? Because they also made a point to show him looking at like some little dirt or something on the seal. And I couldn't tell if that was because he was thinking it may have been tampered with, and so she wrote it in a code so that if somebody read it, they couldn't snitch her out back to Aemond. Or was that just kind of like a joke on, oh my God, this guy's so dirty? I couldn't make up my mind on which of those I thought was true. Did y'all have a feeling on that?
Shannon, you just listed all of the thoughts that rambled through my head while I watched the episode. I don't know about the dirt. I feel like the dirt implicated that maybe someone had read it before it got to him. I don't think he thought it was tampered with, just that it was read ahead of time, which we know from Game of Thrones people do. They will intercept letters and then read them. Because I think the dirt might have gotten underneath the seal, which is sad, guys. You could do better. I don't know if there was a code or if it was just he knows her handwriting. And I love how it's signed. It's signed A.T. Could be Aegon Targaryen, Aemond Targaryen, Alicent Targaryen. It could be anybody. Why do they all start with an A? And honestly, I don't think Lord Ormond cares. Cause his comment afterwards when, someone said, so Aegon is dead, he's like, one king or another, So I don't think he even cares. He's just in it for the war. Anyone else on that?
I think you guys covered it well. I mean, yeah, I certainly could see how that might be down the road. Would be interesting if you did. No, I just thought there is this kind of, I did love the line, one king or another, who cares? And like, oh, maybe the weather will clear up. Now we just wait. And I'm thinking about, why does she want him to wait? Is she just trying to delay enough to let Alicent? So I was just thinking of the chess moves involved in this.
Yeah, so when they didn't really show the letter, except I could see the giant AT, I was like, oh, I don't know what that letter actually says, and if it's going to turn out to be some twist in the strategy. But when he made the comment, one king is as good as another, and he really was just in it for the war, to me. He was sort of like, yeah, whatever, I'm here to fight. I'll whatever, hopefully the weather will clear up for the fight, because now we got to wait for Aemond to show up. And he's maybe not coming on time or as originally planned. That was all that I gleaned from that little bit.
I apologize, listeners. I'm still not going to pick the battle. I mean, this is the third person, and I know we will end up talking about the battle, but I'm going to pick another small scene. The Odd Couple, Larys and Aegon. I just was like, he deliberately did not bring Milk of the Poppy, right? This was not.
I seem to have forgotten it.
Yeah, yep. This was a calculation. I got to get this guy off this drugs. And he, and just Aegon is complaining and complaining. My wife for a while did hot yoga, Bikram yoga, and there was a instructor that anytime someone groaned, she would say, "No one cares about your drama." And so you had to really learn to not groan or grunt. No one cares about your drama. So I was thinking of this, right? Laris is just then. And then they get stopped. And then Laris, "Oh yeah, he's the king." "Oh, I'm not the king." "Oh, my friend is so funny." No, he really is the king." "Quit pulling their leg. You want to see his crown? Shut the F up. I am not the king." And obviously Laris is thinking this is the best way, right? He was calculating, like, okay, Aegon, it would have been so easy for you just to say, "Oh yeah, I bow," and we could have moved on. You didn't. Now we're trouble. This is the only, he's like Doctor Strange. Like, there's only one path that will possibly give us victory. This is it. It's a high percentage, low percentage of us winning. So yes, the Odd Couple on their road trip, like, Bob Hope and Bing Crosby, The Road to Bali or whatever, those movies. Yeah, this is the Road to Dorne. And I really wanted to see, like, where they were going to go next. So I just thought that was in an episode that had a lot of murder and death and destruction, having that little humor there was pretty funny.
Well, we got a lot of whining out of Aegon besides the milk of the poppy. So I do like that, item 1 on the bro tour is detox, on the way to Duskendale and eventually Dragonstone. I was not surprised that Aegon would not bend the knee and swear loyalty to Rhaenyra. That seemed to track with his personality, that he would be unwilling to see beyond his own pain for his own survival. And of course, Laris is playing a long game for himself, hedging his bets. He's like, I'm backing you, but I'm also, laying some track in case I need to do the giant double cross. Because he's like, take us as hostages. I mean, that's kind of the best case scenario, right? In this world, is to be taken as under house arrest in a beautiful place, potentially. I'm assuming they're not going to throw him in the dungeon when they get to Dragonstone, but who knows? There's a lot that could happen along the way. Great choice. I really like that choice.
Jesse, I'm going to be on No One Cares About Your Drama all night now. I just like that is keeping me going. Oh, but Laris is quick on his feet, so to speak. But like, this is the masterclass in manipulation right here. Like, he, calmly, under pressure, just changing tack. Like, oh, okay, I can't sell this lie anymore. Oh, well, yeah, the truth is going to keep us alive a little longer. So let's go with the truth. And I'm going to double down on it. And he's fighting me. And you know what? I got proof. Here you go. Here's his crown. And it's just like so smooth and so calm. Honestly, I've been disgusted with him the past 2 seasons. I think I'm going to like him this season. It's just crazy. And I think it's because he's going to be paired up with Aegon. And like, I hope those two are together for like the duration of whatever's happening with them, because that was gold. I loved it. It was wonderful. And, honestly, I was expecting Aegon to at least like make an excuse for not kneeling. He's obviously in pain. I mean, look at him. Like, you could at least say, I can't kneel. The pain. So I thought he might try that, but obviously he's not quick-witted yet. I really hope Laris starts to rub off on him, because that would be something. That the scene is promising more. The promise of the scene is what I love, and I want more of it. You hear me, showrunners in the past, while you're making this season, I want more of this.
Jesse, don't feel bad about your old-timey reference of Big and Bob. I had this on my short list of scenes too, and in my notes it says Aegon and Larys, the road to Essos. So I loved it for the same reasons you guys have all talked about. It was funny. There were several funny moments in the show. That was just a highlight. Larys is so calm and deadpan. And then when Aegon is doing all his histrionics, and he's like, oh, and here's a crown. Just hands it right to him. And Aegon is going apoplectic. And then he turns the situation to his advantage. It was Littlefinger-esque. In that it was kind of oily and, how to try to weasel your way out of any situation. But Larys has such a detached calm that makes his delivery so funny. And I'm with you guys. I hope we see more of them as a comedy duo on their, which we assume they're being taken to Dragonstone. That might take a bit, but hopefully we get there soon and spend more time with them. That was really, really funny.
So I'm going to continue our streak and not choose the battle as the highlight. I am choosing the one part of the Team Black plan that is still going to plan, which is Daemon in the Riverlands with the Rivermen. I loved how we joined the battle at the end, and we kind of survey through the carnage, including trying to behead the lion, which reminded me a lot of Game of Thrones when after the Red Wedding, when they were parading the wolf head around. Daemon is very, I would say, workmanlike in his brutal, savage killing of people. Actually, everyone is. And Matt Smith in one of the interviews talked about he wanted there to be a lot of fighting, and he also wanted it to be very realistic, which is fights don't last a long time. If somebody's trying to kill you with a sword, they're going to do it pretty fast, which they did. And then I love the conversation when he's talking to the young, I think it was a Tully, who is talking about what's our next plan to, we need to go after
Oscar Tully.
Thank you. He's telling Oscar we need to go after the next Lannister that fled. And by the way, just like Caraxes, roast all the bodies, maybe snack on a few before we go. And he's like, no, we have to bury them. And, you can see Daemon almost roll his eyes. He's like, of course we do. But it's almost like Caraxes heard him, because Caraxes just like shoots out some fire right when he's talking about, hey, just let him, roast a few. And then, so we have this sort of denouement to this skirmish, and they're already looking at where they're going next. And through the woods, we get the Grey Wolves arriving, and, how to make an entrance, bring a head is definitely on the list for making an entrance. And we get, Roddy, I think is his name, Sir Roderick, coming in, who I think is Tommy Flanagan plays him. That was wonderful. And there was some great tension there, because it was like, we think, we see the Stark banner, we think you're sworn to us, but until he says, we've come to die for the Queen, and then, Daemon knows, oh, great, you're just in time, we've got more lions to kill. And that was all we saw of Daemon, but from just that, 3 minutes, we know that he's holding down the Riverlands. So all this other stuff's going crazy, but they got it together. They've got some more foot soldiers for, holding King's Landing when we get there, potentially, or at least holding that area. So, that was definitely a highlight for me.
Yeah, the Winter Wolves showing up with their retirement plan. We've come to die for the Queen. Like, you sound thrilled. Okay. So I predicted in our last episode that Jason Lannister would die quickly and ridiculously. I definitely won the quickly part. We're at odds on the ridiculous, guys. I want your feedback right in. Getting beheaded off screen by some old guys, is that ridiculous? Let me know. But I did like the quick and subtle callback to kind of Daemon's whole storyline last season. Cause we had Daemon versus Lord Oscar Tully here on what to do with the bodies, whether we're gonna have proper burials or just let the dragon burn them. And Oscar just gives him that is not our way. They go back to the mud. And Daemon has this look on his face like, and it's like he's fighting hard against his old habits. He wants to just get it done with and do, his thing. But Oscar made his point last season, and he's got this entire army behind him. He's just a kid, but man, does he know what he's talking about. And all he has to do is tell him this is our way and look at him like, go ahead, try. I dare you. And it's over. They just move on. The entrance of the Winter Wolves was not exactly what I was expecting. I don't know how I didn't think they would be this gruff, but they were much more gruff than I was expecting. I'm expecting them to be super entertaining, and I hope that's what we get soon. They didn't get much here. Just, the old guys are here, and we're ready to die. And I imagine there will be some drinking, because these guys need some drinks.
Yeah, I love this scene too. Another one on my short list. The part you mentioned, Wendy, about how Matt Smith almost rolled his eyes back in his head. You saw it because, as we discussed, impulsive season 1, early season 2, Daemon would have said, F you, and, I got a dragon and we're going to do what I want. But not only did he go through that and make promises and concessions with the people, the River Run, or the people there, to kind of respect their traditions and beliefs, but he also turned over a new leaf kind of in pledging his support and this army support to Rhaenyra. He's like, I can't make waves right now. I can't. So, yeah, we'll dig some holes and whatever you guys want. Was kind of the thing. But then the background comedy of the corrects these just burning things, which were obviously some bodies that had been stacked up there. Again, there was a lot of funny lines and little funny moments in this episode to leaven all the action and other intensity. And they made a great entrance. And it's, I don't know if it was on the post show or whatever, or from the books. And like the Winter Wolves, their tradition is when winter is coming, they take all the older veterans of wars and fighting and whatever, and they go south. And part of the reason they do that is because it's kind of like their way into Valhalla if they were, Norsemen. They didn't want to put a drag on the resources for their young kinsmen in the north. So they leave of their own free will to go and fight in wars and do whatever Winter Wolves do when they head south. So, and Tommy Flanagan, I think, is great casting to be somebody like that. And the toss in the head, we think we're down 2 Lannisters. We have not seen Tylan bobbing around in the Blackwater at any point. But, just to think you got to roll playing twins and then you lose both of them in one episode. It's got to be tough for Jefferson Hall. But that was a really fun scene. And that's also goes back to the code of the Winter Wolves. When they don't say we have come to fight for the Black Queen or the Dragon Queen, or we're here to, kick the Green's tail or whatever. It's like, we have come to die for the Dragon Queen. So they think we're going out, in a rush of glory. So yeah, great choice.
Yeah, and behind the scenes, they show Matt Smith talking to Tommy Flanagan saying, hey, I'm glad you're here. And they seem to be that little connection. And I think there was bonding once again, right? Like the past, I'm sure they enjoyed spending time together. Yeah, this was great. It's not often I can see what's coming, but I suspected when they heard the noise that it might be the Norse, from the north. And so when I saw them, I was like, oh yeah, there it is. And so that was very cool. And like, and Matt Damon going, good, we have more lions to kill, right? This accepting that. I also agree with you guys. Damon is sitting there like, okay, we're going to give them a proper burial by, death by, we're going to do a fire, because that's what Targaryens do. Their funerals are fire. So I think it's also, he feels like he's giving him respect, but also this is a lot more convenient. And so I do love that he called him on his crap and said, no, we have to go back in the mud. This is important to our culture. And yeah, he definitely wanted to roll his eyes and go, yeah, whatever. But okay, gotta do right, gotta play well with the kids. So that was a fun, nice scene. And it was cool seeing, the king consort just cutting through everyone, just one after another, and he's just covered with blood. So yeah, that was a good scene.
Just another Tuesday.
But to me, it also underscored, especially in comparison to these kids in the gullet, what actual battle-hardened warriors are like. And there's a ruthless efficiency to them. It also reminded me of Tywin Lannister when we met him and he's dressing that deer in Game of Thrones. And he's, up to his elbows in innards and everything. And it reminded me of that same sort of demeanor. Damon's in the zone. I think, he is legitimately committed to Rhaenyra as the queen, and it read that way to me. His rationale was no plague if you burn the bodies, which I think is actually a pretty good upside for the burning strategy myself. I don't really want to be around bog bodies myself, but anyway, so we went through a bunch of highlights. We didn't talk about the Battle of the Gullet yet. Are there any other highlights we want to talk about before we jump to the Battle of the Gullet?
Let's just do it. Everybody's waiting for it.
Yep, dive in, Christine.
Oh, crap. That means I have to go first? I wasn't prepared for this. I think I'll focus on the Rhaena portion of this cluster F. I didn't like, how long they spent on her going after this dragon. I'm glad we started right away with, her getting the dragon. Sort of. I really feel like the dragon decided to take on a pet and take it for a ride. I mean, it literally fed her. Gross, by the way. And so she gets it back to Dragonstone, and then she sees that the battle is going on, and she's like, well, go over there. And I'm like, no, don't go over there. You don't know what you're doing. You don't even have a saddle. What are you doing? And it went exactly as I expected it to. She's all like, Dracarys! I'm like, oh, don't even start that stuff. Oh no. Yeah. Got in a few good boat burnings before we started to just go for any target. And then I was like, that somebody is dying from friendly fire. I just see it. Like, it is happening. Thank God it didn't actually come to that, but I still feel like Jace's death is on her. Like, he was distracted. And, nobody can prove that it wouldn't have happened anyway. But he definitely wasn't paying attention because they were dealing with rogue dragon flying around. And can I just say that, like, scorpion anchor thing was intense and effective, and how come they didn't have this later on? Like, they were just going with the Scorpions, but the anchor thing, wow, maybe it wouldn't work on Vhagar, but that's about it. And it was heart-wrenching. I'm like, you just gonna let him drown? Like he unhooked himself from the saddle, and I'm like, you're gonna go down and cut that, right? Right? Oh my God. I'm glad that the internet had the same feeling as me, because that was happening, and I was like, it's a never-ending story all over again. I can't watch. Why are we doing this again? Stop killing my fantasy animals. Just lots of emotions in there. And I do want to touch on, a little before the battle, after Jace had locked Rhaenyra in her room, and he was talking to Baela, convincing her to come with him. There was this look in his eyes. I was like, oh, there's that Targaryen madness. It's coming out. He doesn't have the hair, but he's got the madness. And there was just this look in his eyes like, nothing's gonna stop us now. And I was like, this is gonna go badly. Somebody's dying. I had predicted it would be Baela. I was wrong. I wish I wasn't wrong. But, this scene is going to evoke a lot of heavy emotions. Yeah.
Yeah, a few things I want to touch on here. First, it was magnificently rendered. It was up there with the all-time greatest Game of Thrones and House of the Dragons battles in terms of how it was realized. I never felt like I lost track of what was going on where. They had a great sense of purpose to show what was happening, and throwing out nautical terms and letting you know who was doing well and what ships and turns and what the strategies were and where the dragons were. So, and then the on the boat stuff and the shots from underneath the boat through the water were beautiful. The dragon fire and burning ships and black smoke everywhere. Just a tremendous effort by all the cast and crew. And I really look forward to watching that longer documentary thing about how they did that. A couple of changes from the book, since now that we're past it, I won't spoil anything for the future. But in the book we had talked about Sheep Stealer, and it's a character that's obviously not going to be in the show now, called Nettles, who claims Sheep Stealer. And there was a reason that George did that. But I think by taking Baela and putting the family into it makes it ripe for more drama. Because how is Baela going to confront Rhaenyra now? When is it going to be completely evident that it was Sheep Stealer and Rhaena that caused the loss of Jace? Or is it going to be fog of battle and Aldous? And is it like, well, we lost one dragon, but we got another dragon, which is how Daemon might look at it, when he's doing his dragon math. So I think it adds for a lot of juicy opportunities for drama and emoting and all that. The participants were different. Of the people, like Baela was not involved in it, but I think it's appropriate that she was there for the battle, again, to keep it combined with the cast that we already have, instead of adding somebody new to claim a dragon, train a dragon, and then get involved who hasn't been part of the cast. So there's that. The other thing I wanted to point out was that I loved the pass through the Dragonstone Pass. That little thing. There was the setting fire to Driftmark to distract Corlys when he came out, and how they navigated it with Corlys trying to provide the directions, but eventually taking control of the what did they call it? It wasn't a keel. It wasn't the
helm.
The helm. Yeah, but it wasn't like we always see in the movies, the big round thing. It was more of a stick.
Oh yeah, it was a stick.
Yeah,
he took the stick.
Name for it I saw on something that I can't recall, but anyway, how he expertly did that, and then 2 of the 3 ships that went in from Lohar's fleet got dashed on the rocks beneath. And then it led to the moment where they showed her determination of like throwing everything off, cutting the anchors to make weight so they don't grind on those stones at the bottom, and led to the comedy moment of Thailand and the joke about the armor coming back full circle. Another funny moment in this. And then eventually crashing into him in the hand-to-hand. I thought it was all just beautifully realized, competently filmed, and just well done from a strategic standpoint. I think they mentioned, on the after show, maybe Master and Commander, which is kind of this movie or filmic standard of naval combat. The Pirates of the Caribbean movies had some of that. A lot of times they sacrificed coherence for drama or spectacle in those, like you couldn't tell which ship was where. But I thought they did a terrific job of it last night.
Yeah, shout out to Abigail Thorne. Only 2 episodes. Hard to believe that's all we had her. She was amazing in that. So I have questions. So first off, how does the younger daughter's name is what? I want to make sure I say it correctly.
Raina.
Okay. So Raina, how does Raina know that it's Sheep Stealer is the name? Okay. Secondly, why does she think that a wild dragon understands this formal language?
Valerian.
Yeah, Valerian.
Yeah.
Why does she think? I mean, that is, someone said that, the showrunner in the interview said, imagine taking a mongrel dog you found on the street and you bring it to a dog park. They're not going to behave. That's what Sheep Stealer they did. And she keeps, trying to scream out in Valerium in this high, like, this dragon has not been trained. This dragon has not had any lessons or worked with it. It is truly a wild Mustang or whatever you want to do. So really bad plan. I mean, incredibly bad plan. And I saw an interview with the actress who played her, and she seemed incredibly charming. But the character itself, she looks all wild-eyed, like, oh, I can't believe it. First off, she left her stepbrothers just gone. Like, see ya. I know, the queen asked me to take care of you, but you know what? I'm born to ride a dragon, right? I've got a call. So yeah, that was just crazy. We'll get into. There is so much to cover in the battle. I agree with you guys. The tension of them going through that shallow water, and there was much less music, so there was this tension as you're watching it. And this kind of screech and like, is it going to do? And then we're gone. And her, our pirate queen is obsessed. Like, this is her white whale. She's always very, very supportive of her crew. But then when she got just down there, she's starting cussing at him and run the oars and do this and do that. And she was there. And then I love, like, the way she uses a knife, like eating fruit and doing all that, and having her own knife is the one that she died, was just a really nice thing. I think I'll save when we go to the next round. I hope we do a Jace. We could do just a whole new segment on Jace's death, if we don't mind. But I agree that, bad plan bringing a wild dragon to a dragon fight. And the sailing and the idea of this, I grew up loving pirate movies, right? With Errol Flynn and all these stuff. And so seeing all that boarding and doing that was just beautifully done. And I agree with Shannon. I knew what was going on. Sometimes in Game of Thrones, it would be so dark and cloudy. You're like, oh, what are we seeing? This was really well done, even though there were flames and going, and Sheep Stealer is, friendly fire. No, it's the wrong ships. It would be funny if it wasn't so tragic.
I do have a quick answer to a couple of your questions, Jesse, if I can jump in. Sheepstealer grew up on Dragonstone. So all the locals, that's where he got his name, because when he was there and unclaimed, he would eat the people that lived on Dragonstone. He would eat their sheep. So all the Targaryens and everybody that lived on Dragonstone knew him and referred to him as that. So she would have known that.
But,
and then also...
Yes, but he wouldn't know that name. That's what I'm saying. She's calling him that, but he's like, what's
this?
They did call him
I don't have a name. He left to go to the Vale. So he had heard people call him that. And then he also grew up with other dragons and Targaryens before he decided to peace out to go to the Vale. So he was exposed to High Valyrian and other dragons, you know. And then there's some schools of thought, not confirmed in the text of the show, that it's like, you know, we don't know a language when we're
genetic
born, but
memory.
we can talk. And if you hear it, then you're exposed to it, and then you kind of understand it. So he has not been trained to take commands like a lot of the other tamed dragons. So you're exactly right on that. But those weren't leaps of logic for me.
Well, as a non-book reader, they were definitely leaps for me that she was calling him that. And she thought he was going to respond to any direction, given that he was literally in the fog of war. You know, half the time it looked like half his head was on fire, which I couldn't figure out, was that because somebody had shot a flame into his face, or he like literally couldn't even control the fire coming out of himself, that half his head was on fire sometimes. I do want to give a shout out for Sheepstealer itself. It's a really funky looking dragon. I mean, it looks like a poor, a poor sad puppy that he's gotten, the equivalent of mange, but very...
Sarah McLachlan should be singing a song about him in a commercial,
But it's very endearing for such a scraggly looking thing. I have to say, I'm very disappointed in how they've characterized Rhaena. I mean, she just seems incredibly stupid. I mean, everything about her. It's like, she can't, I don't even understand how she survived wandering around in the Vale, because they've made the character so dumb. I would have thought that the initial nosedive joyride, when the dragon was like, this is what you asked for, would have scared some sense into her about, let's get home so somebody can teach me how to deal with you. So I do blame her for Jace's death, because she did create this chaos factor in the battle. Jace was already making bad decisions because he flew too low the first time to get hit by the first scorpion. And when he dodged the first one, then I was really worried that it was going to be Baela who was going to die. And I'm so relieved she isn't dead yet. So I did like how that was a whole factor in the battle. They often talk about the plans are gone the minute the battle starts, and same thing for Team Green. When Lohar is like, yeah, I'm not here to fight for the Greens. I'm here to take down Corlys and eat his ears on the driftwood throne and all that. So that was really interesting, because you have Tyland, who's like, no, you're the flagship. You don't take the side trip. You send somebody else. and I very much liked how they get through that whole tense, navigating through the Narrow, to then have the two ships to have her collide the ship into there. So it's like to then board the ship, and then how it was slowly breaking apart as the battle went on. I thought that was all really, really well done. And as you pointed out, there was a lot of tension during that period, but there was also, as soon as Sheepstealer entered the battlefield, now we have this whole chaos in the air component that was really well choreographed. I could follow it. And yeah, Mom is going to be really upset when these kids get home. It really just underscored, the stupidity of so many of the characters and what they're doing. And just at the end, when you have the large shot of all these ships destroyed, things in flames, just the complete stupidity of war.
Teenagers, I tell you.
I also love I realize the reason he doesn't want his mom to go, Jace, is because she's the queen, but there also is a little bit of sexism in there, as Rhaenyra talks about. But he still tells his girlfriend, yeah, but you can come with us. Like, oh yeah, like my mom, who has an experienced dragon rider, she can't come. But yeah, how about you and I go together, right? He was not very rest in peace.
I also want to give a shout out to the name of Lohar's ship, the Bitch Fist. I thought that was just wonderful.
All right, I want to circle back around to everyone's questions. I'm going to hit Jesse's questions with Wendy's perspective of, I didn't read the book. So here's how I took it. Rhaena named it Sheepstealer because she heard that it was stealing sheep. That works for me. I would never expect the dragon to know that name yet. But if she keeps repeating it, should pick up on it. I mean, I call my dog Butthead. He responds to it now. So that's how it works. When the giving it commands in High Valyrian, I have heard this with other actual species. They have some sort of genetic memory, and since we're dealing with fantasy in a world that does have magic, I'm gonna assume that the dragons have a genetic memory to High Valyrian because for generations they've been taught that language and understand it. So that's how a non-book reader can accept those things in my head. That's how I wrote it off. I looked it up, Shannon. The stick is called a whipstaff, and it's how you steered ships before the invention of the steering wheel. So that's very interesting. I also wanted to mention, I completely ignored the whole nautical part of that battle, and I actually really enjoyed just the technical side of it. How the command staff on the ship relayed what was going on to each other, what they were calling out, and like going through that passage. I loved that Corlys knew that passage so well. Like, it's a very precise path, and he's trying to relay it to the guy on the whipstaff, and I'm like, would you just drive, please? And I said that like 2 seconds before he grabbed it. I'm like, thank you. I'm like, why would you give this to someone else? This is too precise to give it to someone who's never done this before. And I do love, like, when Lohar's going through and he starts saying, cut the anchors, lose the weight. And I'm like, start tossing people overboard. Oh, there they go. Because, like, it was already planted in my mind, like, you're not gonna like all that armor when you go in the drink. And I'm like, there it is. Just start losing weight. And I had I recently did a rewatch of Firefly, and in Janestown, they talked about how their ship was going down and they were tossing out everything to lose weight. And he wasn't about to toss out the money before he tossed out his partner. So I totally saw that coming. And I have hopes for Lord Tyland, because as we were made very plainly aware, it was very shallow water. Very shallow. And Lord Corliss went down with armor on, and we saw in the preview, well, he wasn't moving, but I don't think they just, spent time on a dead body, washing up on a shore. So I think Lord Corliss is still alive because of that, and so I have hopes for Lord Tyland. Let's hope he's still alive.
One trivia thing I noted last night, because I had on my second watch, I had the subtitles on, and they're saying larboard with an L to mean left.
Oh, I looked this up.
Yeah, because before it was called starboard and larboard, but it sounded too similar, so eventually they changed larboard to port. Because I was like, is that a typo?
Yeah.
But it was clearly, they would say larboard, and you would see the ships go to the left, and I'm like, what? So I had to look that up, and that's a little bit of trivia I never knew.
Yeah. I kept hearing, I actually managed to hear them say larboard, and I was like, I haven't heard that before, and I'm not hearing them say port. What is going on? Is this a different direction? Are they referring, is that more like the sun side of the ship? No. So I also looked it up, and it was the left versus right, and I'm like, why would you ever use larboard and starboard? That's confusing. They sound too similar, which is why it got changed.
Yeah, I did not realize that. I heard the larboard, and I was thinking, oh, they're just making up, words instead of using port and starboard. But then when I heard starboard, I was like, why would they only use one? So that's good to know the reason behind it. I was like,
can I just say kudos to whoever was in charge of this portion of the battle scene, because it has driven us to do research. Like, we are interested enough to go look this stuff up, and that is entertainment.
Okay, I think that's a great segue to talk about Jace and his moments leading up to his demise. So Jesse, you wanted to start with this. You wanted to save this, so I'm going to have you start.
Well, thanks. Yeah, he's had an interesting arc. I often joke about with the prodigal son parable that I think the other son gets a bad rap. Like, the father, for those of you who didn't go to Sunday school, the prodigal son leaves the family. He asks his father to give him his inheritance earlier. He goes to another country. He squanders it. He's in horrible situation, and he says, I'm going to go back home because even my father's servants live better than I do. And when he comes back, the father is thrilled to see him again. He, has the fatted calf. He puts a ring on him. He cleans him. He gives him fresh clothes. And the son who stayed is like, hey, Pop, I've been the good guy for this whole time. You never gave me a fatted calf. You never put a ring on my finger. What? And, and so the parable is that one was lost, you're happy. And I always thought the son had a good point. The good kid gets ignored for the one who's the bad. So Jace has a point. I'm a bastard. Everyone knows it. The only thing that makes me different is I have a dragon. And now then, any Tom, Dick, or Ulf has a dragon. What the F does that make me? Right? And, and I think, his betrothed is like, look, there's a lot of bastards that have the throne, right? Just, you're over it. But it's in his head. And so he's upset. And I see this a lot at work, that someone will give a suggestion, and if you don't follow it, they think you're not listening to them. When the reality is, yes, I heard your suggestion, but I don't think it's the right thing, so we're not going to follow it. That doesn't mean I didn't hear you. He thinks he's not being heard. My mother is ignoring my advice. This is thing. So he, actually, you could make the argument is, he betrays his mom by having her locked up, telling the honor guard, right, the King's Guard, look, don't let her out. And he's going to go out and be the big hero. And unfortunately, I agree, partly not his fault, because all of a sudden he's got a wild dragon going on that's not controlling. He's everything. And I thought his death was really well done. The scene, because I really thought when he was in the water and telling the dragon, rise, rise, like, okay, maybe. And then when you go and he unhooks, okay, it's going to happen. And then I was like, damn it, why didn't I say Jace was going to die by an arrow? I said somebody else is going to die by an arrow. And at first I thought, that's awful convenient. They were able to shoot him. But then on the rewatch, the ship's not that far away. So I could see how he's a pretty good. So, yeah, we lose, Daenerys loses another son. And, the critics had said there's a lot of death in this season. And I think they started off great. So I was really, I hated to lose the character, but I thought the way they told the story was well done.
Yeah, there was a lot of death. The thing about Jace is, he's the boy who lived, so Mom is protecting him, right? All last season, she wouldn't let him leave the castle. He had to fight to be able to go on missions. When Rhaenyra was going to go to Harrenhal to confront Daemon, he thinks he's going to go, and instead she takes Adam, right, with her as her wingman. But I do think that Rhaenyra has a point about, I can't believe this kid didn't listen to me. Misogyny is real, right? Because if she had been a man saying those things, it wouldn't have been, over-enthusiastic exuberance about the plan, which she was all excited about the plan because it's a pretty good plan. She thinks it's going to be a low body count plan. And Jace is saying, hey, we can't trust her. Why do you think we can trust her? And, definitely Rhaenyra did not do a good job of articulating what you just said, which was, I hear you and I'm passing on your suggestion. She just kind of ignored him. And I'm going to be very curious what we see as Rhaenyra coming out of this, because in her mind, he was disobedient. He betrayed her. He got the Kingsguard to essentially disobey her order for his. So I do agree that he's, got this chip about being a bastard, and also I think compounded with how Luke died, that, Rhaenyra's overly protective of him. Although she makes a great line when he says, what happens if you die? And she's like, well, you'll get to be king. And which would be horrible if that actually happened for the realm. That would be absolutely horrible if he were in charge. His death itself was very poignant. I got to admit, I was a little bit sadder about Vermax. Christine made a comment earlier about why are we so emotionally pulled by a CGI animal. It's how they modulate the screaming and shrieking as they're dying that just is what grabs my heart every time when they do that. It was very well played by Jace, but I mentioned this earlier, he doesn't have good battle experience. He was flying too low. That's why he got hit in the first place. Bela's clearly a much better rider in general, in terms of, maybe her dragons got more skill as well. I think it's bigger than Jace's, which I would have thought, because if he had a smaller dragon, it'd be more maneuverable. But I do think that, Sheep Stealer distracted him. And again, young rider can't cope with all the stuff that's going on in that battle. I'm going to be very curious. We saw in the what's coming, that his body's going back home. And I'll be, very curious to see what this does to Rhaenyra in terms of how she deals with everybody when it comes to input to battle plans and obeying orders.
So you mentioned that this is very much a gender thing, and the knee-jerk reaction is to say he's just trying to protect his mother, but immediately you got to switch it out and say he's just trying to protect his father. No 16-year-old boy would have the audacity to command their father locked in their bedroom while they run off to battle instead. No, that would never happen. The King's Guard wouldn't have fallen for that, but the Queen's Guard did. He felt proper in locking his mother in his room. It is very gendered. It is absolutely gendered. That would never have happened were she a man. And I do want to flip this a bit. We haven't said very much about Rhaenyra in all of this. She wasn't actually in the episode that much, surprisingly. She was very overly excited about this plan. I do acknowledge that she just ran roughshod over everybody's concerns. She may have heard them, but it didn't look like it. Didn't look like she cared what they were saying. She was like, it's all better now. We found the solution. We just gotta do it. And then they get interrupted by a battle, which also wasn't part of the plan. Already, it's not going according to plan. And so she goes in a room to change into her riding leathers and gets locked in. I have two thoughts during this. First off, if they find that there was a secret way out of that room this whole time, I am going to be pissed. Because this is our Targaryen castle. It seems like the master bedroom would have a secret exit. I mean, they always do. I mean, she had one in her other castle. She used it. Mysaria, have you not figured this out yet? Have you not planned this? There's gotta be a way out of that room. And I am so mad that they didn't even look for it during the episode. But the second thing, Rhaenyra starts tearing up the dress she was wearing. She has changed into her riding leathers, and she starts tearing up the dress she was wearing. Because this was able to happen because she had to change. And, in the behind the episode stuff, we also hear her talk about how it's like this symbol of her gender that she wants to tear into that and wants to be seen as a king now. And I'm like, whatever you gotta do, because I have a feeling that she is going to probably be wearing riding leathers almost all the time now. I wouldn't blame her, because she has to be ready to walk out that door, because that little delay is what caused all of this. She should have just been able to, would a guy not already, they go to those meetings wearing full armor for some reason, even when they're not prepared for a battle. They're ready to run off to battle immediately, and she was wearing a dress. And she's probably going to be pissed about that to the end of her days. And I just will say this one thing. I know at this point the actors were actually in their early 20s at this point, but the kids are supposed to be 16. And maybe I was a unique 16-year-old, but I never thought that I knew better than the adults in my life. Not once, because all I learned in my 16 years getting to that point is that I have a lot to learn. I may feel like I know things, but I don't know what I don't know. And I really feel like this is a lesson that needs to be taught to kids from the start. You may feel a certain way, but the truth is, you can only learn some things through time. And you're not going to know everything before you're an actual adult. And I really feel like royalty needs to be taught this more, because they have too much power at their fingertips.
Yeah, so a couple of things. On the gendered question, we ask if it was flipped. I do think Jace's idea of, but you're the queen. Without you, all this is pointless. You're the one that has to sit on the throne, and has, if I was to sit on the throne, then people could claim, oh, I'm a bastard or whatever. So he's making a good point there. But even if he said that to, say, his father, if Rhaenyra was a man, he wouldn't lock his dad in the room. So his intentions may have actually been, okay, we need to save the monarch for that. And he tried to make that same case. It would be like, shut up, boy. And then the Queen's Guard, or in this case, King's Guard, would not have barred the door and kept it there. So I think you're right about being gendered, even if I don't think he's a complete sexist and his heart was in the right place. Also, was this the room where the Cargill twins killed each other? So I think
I believe so.
I think this is her bedroom.
Exit there. Surely Rhaenyra would have known about it and tried to get the hell out of there during that, when she couldn't tell which one of these two guys was trying to kill her, or somebody snuck in and then tried to kill her. So I think it's kind of established, if you will, that there is no secret way out of there.
Well, that needs to be changed. Damn it.
Well, yeah, it's poor design, clearly. You should always have a secret way out. And then I just want to give a shout out to the actor, Harry Collette. I thought he did a good job playing respectful but impetuous, and even when he was petulant, he didn't go over into like Aemond and Aegon territory of being a total a-hole. And he was, I thought he handled the death scene well. Just the surprise and how he was really concerned for Vermax. And you guys are right. It was like a pet dying. It was the sound was a huge part of that. But also the expressions on the dragon's face, how they animated, was also heartbreaking. So, and then he gets up and you can see the ships in the background. And I knew what was coming, or at least I thought I did. But as soon as he comes up for air and you see that ship in the background, it's like, oh, no. And then that first one hits him. And it's like, oh, boy. So, it totally handled it the way that I had seen in my mind after reading the book. And it was also just sad and tragic in every aspect of it. And, oh boy, those family meetings are going to be something next episode.
Before Wendy, I did want to, you must have been a good kid, Christine, because I think most 16-year-olds do think they know more than their parents. Famous Mark Twain, I left town at 18, and when I came back at 22, I was surprised how much my father had learned. Like at 18, I thought my father was an idiot. When I came back at 22, I was surprised how much he learned. So I think most teenage, especially boys, would think their parents don't know what they're doing. So you were a good kid.
Yeah,
Sadly,
I think
yes.
Teenagers think the world is a lot simpler than it is.
I was also not a very interesting kid, so I'll give it to Jace. But, we see what comes of living an interesting life.
Yeah, they can be short, for sure. I definitely want to reiterate a great performance by the actor who played Jace. And this episode really brought the carnage. In our pre-show, we had gone through a lot of predictions about who was going to die. And I'm assuming the next episode might be a little bit quieter on the death and battle front, but who knows? There could be something sneaky coming around the corner. We shall see. I definitely have very high expectations based on that kind of coming this season sort of trailer that we got at the end of this episode. It looks like we got a lot of good stuff coming. Do folks have any final thoughts, topics to discuss? Okay, I think we did a great job covering everything. I did want to give one final thought. Shannon touched on the opening credits and the music. The other thing about how they've redrawn the embroidery, it when I was looking at it, I was really thinking, wow, they're kind of evoking the way that fire spreads. I mean, the way that the threads were filling in the past, it was more like blood soaking into linen. And this time it's more like little sparks popping everywhere as the fabric was unfolding. And it even had like a big wave at the end, as it crashed into the Targaryen crest. So, I like those little tweaks. Yeah.
Before it went straight to the Iron Throne, and showing the Targaryen crest was a new addition to it.
Yeah. So I liked how they didn't, whole cloth change the credits. I did like the adjustment that they made last season away from the blood pouring through whatever it was going through that model.
You said whole cloth changed. I like that. That was clever. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this. I went back and looked at Sheep Stealer with the fire coming out of the side. One of the ships had fired something flaming at him, and that's why the fire was on the side of his face. But
that's what I assumed, but yeah. I hadn't seen a lot of fireballs being hurled. I mean, I guess they were shooting flaming arrows. Thank you.
I don't know exactly what it was, but it was. I think it was something that they normally fire at the other ships, but it hit him in the side of the face. And
yeah, there was even a name for it. I think Lohar at one point said light the whatevers, and it showed like almost like a cannonball kind of thing that they light on fire that catapulted out to hit other ships.
Yep. Cool. Okay. Well, we talked through a lot of highlights. We would love to hear from you all that are listening. We appreciate you for listening. And we will be back again next week to talk about the next episode. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. No lowlights this season. All highlights.
There we go. We'd love to hear our listeners voice thoughts and send us feedback. Call us at 706-927-8478. Stop by our tuningintoscifitv.com blog to record a SpeakPipe message, or check the show notes and leave us comments. From the blog, you can also find links to forum discussions and subscribe to our RSS feed. Call into our Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV Skype account and leave us a message. Be social with us on our Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV Facebook page, or follow us at Tuning Into Sci-Fi on Twitter.
You've been listening to Small Council Matters from Tuning Into Sci-Fi TV, episode 128, recorded June 22nd, 2026.